Like many wood turners, you've had a go at Hickory. It's hard, but this piece in particular came from a burl left over and been drying under my drying bench. Going to pull it out, put it onto the lathe, and we're going to make a nice looking bowl out of this. We're going to deal with some issues as we go, but it's a challenge. After all, isn't that what wood turning is all about? So I'm going to cut off some of the checks either end of this half log here, make it into a round, and mount it on the lathe. After cutting it round on the bandsaw, you can see here that we've got a few cracks. We've still got the pith of the wood here, which goes all the way through, of course. But I like the coloration of the grain here, and I also like even the sapwood has some character to this. There's a bit of a cut here, I think, from the chainsaw or the bandsaw, one or the other, but that doesn't really matter because I'm going to cut about an inch off this, making it flat on this side, make it rounder on the bottom because this is going to be the bottom, cut a foot. Yeah, so we're going to get cracking into making this into a very nice bowl shape. So follow me, guys. Going to start with the Ellsworth 5/8 bowl gouge just to get this nice and flat on this side. Around about, well, as many revs I can go without having too much of a wobble. So about 500 or 600 RPM to start with. So there's quite a few voids and very deep cracks, so I'm not going to try and fill these ones at this point. We're going to try and turn as much of it out as possible. So the bowl will be dramatically smaller than we see here at the moment. It's going at 10 inches and 4 inches deep. Cutting a foot now, follow me. Going to be using the Big Mark chuck, the large one. It's a 5 inch, so around about that lip, probably a little bit wider, around about there. Okay, that's our foot size. On with the mask. Yeah, that's a pretty bad crack there actually. So see how we go. Just before I turn this bowl around and place it into the truck, I thought I'd get a bit of a shape on the outside here, which is something coming up with every millimetre I take up of ground. The cracks get larger and larger, as you can see. So going to keep on going till I don't think this crack here is going to disappear at all. I'm going to end up having to fill that one. The other ones, and this one too, all the other ones are going to be fairly small, so I can fill those with CA glue and something or another. Anyway, I'll think about it as we go. Alright, onwards. Okay, I'll get to filling some of these cracks. As much as I don't want to, there's not much choice in this one. Now I've got some 5-minute epoxy I'm using this time, and some resin black pigment paste, so that you can see here it's completely black. 5-minute epoxy means it's going to set in 5 minutes, so each crack will be done separately. Got a little tool here to force it into the crack. Decided the epoxy resin, decided on the 5-minute epoxy rather than CA glue, because these cracks are extremely large and they go up to about 1.5 inches to 2 inches deep, so they're going to reach into the inside of the bowl for sure. So I'm going to force this epoxy deep into the crack, and although the black is sticking out at the moment in terms of its colour against the brown background, the 5-minute epoxy now is pretty well dry, and it's filled those cracks nicely. So I'm just going to give a final finishing cut on the outside of the bowls here, and on with the mask. With a bit of sanding there, should be able to give it a nice, I'll get the scraper out on that just to give it a bit of a better finish, and yeah, should Bob's your uncle. Yeah, it's time to hollow out the bowl. I'm going to take probably around about a 1/4 inch wall, but I'm going to take a bit more of this pith out. So here we go. 2-inch force and a bit hollows out the centre of the bowl, so we can get a bit more of the meaty stuff out easier. That's 2 inches. Probably go about another inch. wood's very, very hard. We can see on the inside of the bowl, we're starting to see some gigantic cracks. Hopefully, as we turn the inside of the bowl out, most of these cracks are going to disappear. They have been filled, as you know, from the outside to the inside. And it did go fairly deep as far as the epoxy is concerned, so it's going to go straight in through to the inside wall too. So I'm going to be very super careful when I'm turning this, because these cracks, things can fly off, so I'm going to stay this side of the bowl. Onwards. There's one gigantic crack at the bottom there, you can see very, very plainly. And another one on the side, or parallel to that, I can start to see now the epoxy crack on the edge here. Probably bring the bowl around a little bit further. Yeah, just appearing above the T-rest there, tool rest. Alright, gonna keep on going. So we can now see the outside epoxy filler coming through to the inside of the bowl, and this crack is not as big as it was, so it is starting to disappear, but definitely needs to be filled with epoxy on the inside. In fact, you know, the black epoxy, the 500 epoxy, is suiting the colour and the grade and the grain of this wood. It's coming out quite spectacular actually as we get closer and closer towards the inside of the bowl. I'm sitting about 1/4 inch on the rim here, and it goes out to probably about 1/2 inch towards the bottom there. So I'm going to do a few more finishing cuts, and then we'll get the old sandpaper working. Carry on. The calipers here are showing around about 1/4 inch there. I've still got possibly a good inch towards the bottom there. Yeah, there's about an inch there. I could go a little bit deeper, but I think I'm going to leave that around about where it needs to be, particularly as the wood is cracked towards the end there. So just going to take some of the tool marks out of the walls here and then sand it up to about 320. Going to take the bowl right out of the chuck to apply the 500 epoxy so that it can dry, and then some sanding after that. All the inside cracks now are completely sealed off with 500 epoxy, and it's been sanded back down to 400 grit, and then about to put onto the Mylar sanding sealer, which goes on the inside of the bowl. And as you see, when it's applied, it really brings that grain to the surface. And you know, filling those cracks with the 500 epoxies really made it quite characterful. if I might say so myself. And so this Mylar sanding setter, just cap off the grain and seal it up for ready for the Acks paste and Acks polish, and a bit of friction polish too. So I'll be back in a moment. That's the Acks Abrasive sanding paste on top of the sanding sealer. Usually get this up to around about 1000 RPM to get the abrasive paste completely off, so that the rag is actually coming back clean or dry. That's all removed, and it's going to get as fine as it can possibly be from the first stage. So it's the abrasive paste and then the abrasive polish with the Canura Max, and finally some Mylar friction polish, give it a bit of a gloss. So I'll come back once all that's done, and we'll turn the bowl around and take the foot off. You've got the bowl turned around, and it's planted firmly on the vacuum chuck, and it's been held tight there with the tailstock, pressed hard. I've put a little bit of shop towel between the rubber gasket and the face of the bowl now that it's finished with the friction polish, only to stop it from rubbing on that vacuum truck when it does get stuck or a catch on the rear, and it leaves a rubber mark. So the frugal vacuum truck which I use is great. I mean, it really does hold things on there. I can remove this tailstock, no problems at all, it'll hold by its own, but just for a bit of safety's sake I usually leave that there. So just going to take this foot off, pretty well straightforward. Going to put the medallion at the bottom, and then the whole project should be finished. Very pleased with the grain here, but let's have a look at it when it's done. Follow me. I've got to say that this turned out spectacularly well. You can see the outside of the bowl where the cracks were. They're all plenty well camouflage filled with the black epoxy, 5-minute epoxy. In the interior of the bowl, the grain has come out really, really very nice. So this piece of hickory, very, very hard to turn. It is, when I say hard, I don't mean difficult. I mean it's a very hard, solid wood. But the grain pattern itself was just amazing. Got a few characterful situations there. Left that void unfilled because it looked better as it was. The wood itself is pretty well dried out after being in a paddock there for about 2 years, being chopped up and not being taken away. So essentially I'm very, very pleased with the outcome. It turned out well. The foot, I put in a convex area so that it rests on the rim there, so it doesn't wobble or anything. And I don't believe this will overlise either because it's completely dry. The very nice grain pattern on the inside there, particularly if it came up fairly close, if I could. Yep, it's very nice on the inside, and on the outside that same grain pattern exists. So you can see there where it came out extremely well. And of course the 5-minute epoxy filled the cracks very, very well. Thank you guys for watching me this week. We've got another one for you next week, bit of a surprise. And yeah, cheers guys.